not adjust your computer sets or your smart devices. This is a pre-recorded message from a YouTuber you probably do not know. At the recorded time, he has 59 subscribers and growing, a somehow budding YouTuber in the apocalyptic world we currently call YouTube. While the world around him dies, he intends to survive, to thrive. A game has recently come into his possession by means of purchasing it with his money obtained from his own wallet. These are the reviews of one Dylan, or as you know him, Corrupted Hero.
Whoa, my head. Ugh, hang on. What the hell was in that stuff? Oh shit. Oh right. Yeah, hey guys, it's nice to be back. I was, I don't seem to remember where I was. It's not important. Let's just get into this review. I've got some games for you this year. Yes, sir, I do. A good lineup to look forward to from games that have... What? That's not right. Who wrote this script? Bunch of amateurs. But have I got games for you this year? Yes, sir, I do. A good lineup to look forward to from games that have yet to come out to games that I haven't even gotten around to. This year is sure to have a good amount of content for you all to enjoy, so today we're going to jump into a game that I've been playing for a good while on and off, and that is Dragonball Fighter Z, or Fighterz. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that part. Tomato, tomato, I suppose. Anyway, let's jump into the review. So, initial impressions on this game before we go into the nitty-gritty of things. Wow. Holy shit, is this a good Dragon Ball game. Just straight out the bat. From an art perspective, from like the animation to even like the music and the backgrounds and the amount of detail that went into this game. I've never really played any of the games from the creators previously. Like everyone was saying, this is from the creators of Guilty Gear, I think it was. Never really heard of them. I was never really massively into the fighting scene. I mean, I played the old fighting Dragon Ball games like Budokai and Tenkaichi and like Xenoverse and all those sort of games. But when it comes to fighting, I think my only really experience is from like I think once or twice I played Soul Calibur at a friend's house or something. The one with like Yoda. God, I don't know how long ago that was. But other than that, like, I'd never really been massively into the fighting scene, and it's actually really fun. The way this game is played, like, you get sort of two chances. One where you get a decent fight where somebody's equally matched against you, or another where you're just kind of being spammed the fuck out of the ring the whole time in the corner, and you really can't get out. But it's such a fun experience when you find somebody who's actually good enough, or as good as you, I should say, because you feel like, oh yeah, I want to go again, I want to fight you again. You get that kind of same sort of enthusiasm but rivalry similar to what Dragon Ball portrays in, like, say, Goku and Vegeta. But yeah, the servers are meh, but I would say that'll improve once people stop playing the game as much, at least once the majority of people sort of die down. For the hardcore fans or the more dedicated people to this game will sort of get a better experience over the coming months as the game matures. So I guess I have that to look forward to once the servers hopefully improve, because currently they're up and down. You know, I've had matches where it's just been like, you know, the worst connections ever. I've had matches where people rage quit. I've had matches where I thought someone rage quit, but then the server just booted me out of it or something. But other than that, there's not much else to say on first impressions. So I suppose now I'm gonna make sure that I've just more or less finished the story. I've, you know, played the ranked a little bit, played all the different versions of training and all the different things that it provides, and then I'll come back to you. So let's do that. Okay, so whew, is this a good game? Aside from, like, you know, I would say an annoying experience on the servers, I would say aside from that this has been a tremendous game. I mean, it has everything that every other Dragon Ball game has ever had, but the thing is that it also adds this really good level of, like, finesse, polish. Everything just seems to be thought of. If you can imagine it from a Dragon Ball game as a reference, it's probably in this game. I mean, everything from interactions between characters to personalities and the way they talk and the way that they move, even though they move at a reduced frame rate, looks amazing. I was sometimes questioning whether or not it was hand-drawn or 3D modeled. It's 3D modeled, but it's just, the line has become so blurred that it looks stunning. And I have to say that, like, from a visual perspective, this game is extremely pleasing. I commend whoever created the visual aesthetics that this game provides. Even from little things like from throwing key blasts and them landing in the background and destroying a part of it, to, like, whenever you do ultimates and you launch somebody into, like, the world, whenever you down them. It's just, oh, it's really good. From a combat perspective and a gameplay perspective, it's a little complicated at first if you're not familiar with, like, fighting games. Like, for me, the quarter circle stuff, that was all kind of confusing to me at first. But I think I've gotten a good hang of it now, you know, it's just something you just have to sort of get a knack for. And obviously I'm not a professional at these games, but you know, I felt myself compelled to play online with other players, to play the multiplayer, to play the ranked, to play even the side modes, like the tournaments and stuff. Like, those are fun. I had a lot of challenge when I went into the hard mode of them. I would say that the AI at first is a little bit stupid. It's a little bit too easy, a bit too babyish, but once it picks up and once you get to, like, hard difficulties, like if you set an AI to level 99 and go play with it on, like, computer versus single player, you're gonna get your ass handed to you unless you know how to use the controls, or to at least do the most most minor advanced shit. I know that's kind of counterproductive, but you'll understand that if you kind of play the game, where it's like there's really advanced combos, but then there's some that are kind of advanced, but they're not, like, impossible to learn or impossible to do. They're just sort of there. Now, there was a lot of characters that I definitely didn't like, and there was a lot of characters that I liked, but aside from opinion, I feel like every character plays differently. There are some characters that are clearly better than others, particularly the Super Saiyan Blue characters, who seem to have better ultimates, particularly Goku, who seems to be able to deal, like, almost your entire health bar as damage. It's ridiculous. And then there is people like, say, Frieza, who are more sort of combo based rather than, like, move based. Or, like, there's people like Android 16, who's like sort of a heavy tank kind of guy who has a lot of invincibility frames. And then you got people who are kind of like in the middle of those two classes, like, say, light and heavy and medium. You got people who are even in the middle of those classes, like, say for example, Vegeta feels like he's very in the middle there, where he kind of has a good balance of combos mixed with abilities mixed with, like, ultimate and everything. You know, it's all very complex but very fun, and I suppose a lot of it becomes subconscious though after a while. You don't have to think about it as much, and it just more or less becomes muscle memory once you've been playing the game for a while. I noticed that. I also noticed though that when I left the game and came back to it a week later, that the same kind of muscle memory was retained, but it took me a couple matches to get back to the level that I was at, because I was, you know, just playing different games and stuff. I really want to talk about the the visuals in this game. Now, it takes from obviously the style of Dragon Ball. I mean, that's a given, but it adds this like 3D element to it that it's done, I think, using cell shading. But in a sense, it almost looks like the show identically, aside from, say, a reduced frame rate. Definitely some issues when characters are moving. When they're walking, their walk cycles don't reflect the way that they move on the ground, let's say, or different bits and pieces like that. But I mean, the way so many little things move in general makes the characters feel alive, and they don't feel stiff. They feel very fluid, and like they feel like they're actually being animated rather than just sort of, you know, sitting there like a visual novel, sort of having a conversation sort of a way. It's definitely a nice change of pace for Dragon Ball games. Normally Dragon Ball games feel quite stiff with the movement. It's usually like I move and then I stop moving and just stay in place for the whole time. But then there's always little bits of movement going on in the background in every shot, basically, in this game. Moving on a little bit from the visuals to more the story. The story is a classic sort of Dragon Ball movie story. I mean, it's easily something I could see actually being in like the movie sagas that they produce. Like, I suppose it kind of it's kind of a bit reminiscent of Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans, kind of like that, I would say. But other than that, the story can be kind of tedious. Not from a story perspective, but rather the fact that the gameplay sort of takes you out of the story for a little bit, especially when it gets repetitive and you're kind of just like, okay, I want to find the fastest way to get out of the campaign and get back to the story. It's kind of like a double-edged sword in a sense. I would say the fight screens get kind of tedious because you're constantly hearing that, that same sound effect over and over and over and over, and the same music over and over and over. It kind of gets repetitive and tedious. I don't mean within the fights, I mean before the fights when they show each character's roster. That's fine for multiplayer, but I mean in the single player it gets really repetitive, really fast, and really tedious. I know it's just a quick, cheap kind of way to trick people into thinking something's going on when it's actually not, while the game actually loads in the background, but, just for me, it's kind of irritating. Oh, I love the introduction of the new character, Android 21. She has moved, like on my wife tier, she's, moved easily to the number 3. But really and truly, she's a fantastic character. I mean, aesthetically, I like both of her forms. She's fun. She's clearly erratic, but definitely she fits in well with sort of the classic Dragon Ball villain roster, doing stuff in a very similar way to Boo. I mean, she's just Boo 2 Electric Boogaloo, but you know what I mean. You can't expect too much variety from a series that's been going on for so long. It's very difficult for them to do something new and different. And to be honest, the female antagonist is something new enough that we haven't really seen in a while. I know there's that new female Super Saiyan or whatever. I don't know. I'm not that far yet in this series of Super. Other than that, I don't think she's an antagonist, so I don't really know. I think Android 21, aside from Android 18 at one point, is really the only female antagonist. The Z Saga, or I suppose the Super Saga now, has really had, at least from what I can remember. I don't really remember too many female antagonists. I suppose Launch, kinda. The music is more or less just sort of samey. I suppose Dragon Ball music kind of all blends into each other, except for some of the earlier stuff where they had cool themes for certain characters like Cell or Frieza or that sort of stuff. It just sort of more or less blends into each other in these games. I would always say it does, especially in more recent years. But there's that one song in the loading screen now. It hits a high note with me, and it just sort of annoys me. It's sad because it's a good song. It's not a bad song, but it's just I'm hearing it all the fucking time. I'm hearing that riff, and it just sort of drives me mad because I associate it with a bad thing. That's why, I suppose. The game offers several different choices of play style and several other different modes to choose from. You've got stuff like the single player, you've got stuff like the training, you've got stuff like the tournaments, you've got the local multiplayer, you've got the online multiplayer modes and the ranked, and you have the replay section, which is just sort of looking over your own matches or others' matches. You can watch the button movements, you can see how you've been playing, you can sort of check up on the way that you've been dealing with things, or maybe find ways to, say, better play a character, or maybe like correct mistakes that you've been making. It's all very interesting. Every area has a purpose. In fact, there's 2 areas that don't seem to have a purpose yet, but I assume they might in DLC later on. And speaking of DLC, we finally have a game that doesn't really have microtransactions per se, or like kind of does, but it's all in-game currency that is earned through playing the campaign or playing multiplayer, and it's not that difficult to obtain. It sort of works on a similar system to loot boxes, kinda, but it's not like, oh, you pay this and you get more loot boxes. It's more like, you know, you play the game, and as a reward, you get experience points, and you get Zenny, which is the sort of Dragon Ball currency, and you use that to purchase capsules, which will just give you cosmetic shit. It's all sort of just cosmetic. It's not really anything special. There's nothing like, you know, locked behind a paywall, like say Goku SSJ, or it's SSGS. I don't remember. It's like ridiculously long. Nothing like that is locked behind a paywall per se. There are certainly ways to unlock everything in game just by playing it. I would say save up your Zenny though, because if you save it up, you get to unlock a character, and you don't have to buy them. You just have to accumulate a certain amount of Zenny over time. I suppose it's just to be like only experienced players can use this, but I obtained it pretty fast. So I think if you play, say, the tournament mode, or you play the single player, you will gain Zenny pretty fast, and it won't be too much of an issue for you. Other than that, I'd certainly have to say that this game has a bright future. There have been server issues that I've already mentioned in this video that I feel like will be fixed eventually. Hopefully they will, at least. Certainly in the UK there's issues, because that's sort of the area I have to go to, the server-wise. I would say that the game's community seems friendly. It all seems quite nice and quite cool. The ranked modes are quite difficult, but you know, you do have to learn that there are differences between playing against AI and playing against people. People are much more erratic and much more difficult to predict, so sometimes playing against people can actually be kind of beneficial to how you play, as you can become more skilled by actually playing against people than really the bug standard robots and AI. They don't really know how to cope against certain attacks because it goes against their sort of logic pattern. Like if I were to Dragon Rush them, or if I were to go and I think it's Super Rush maybe. I can't remember the names, but like if I were to Super Rush them, they kind of can't cope with that. It's weird. I don't know how the AI works around it, but it doesn't seem to work very well with that. So there's little things like that people are able to sort of predict and dodge and block, and you know, that sort of thing. If I'm to give this game a rating, I'd have to say it deserves an 8 out of 10. I say 8 out of 10 because I feel like the repetition in a lot of the single player kind of dragged the story down, and the fact that from the get-go the game is kind of a little bit too easy is just kind of it gets kind of boring at the very start. You have to persevere through, say, the first arc before it starts to get kind of interesting, and then in the final arc something happens and it's also kind of a little bit annoying. Not really, kinda, but I won't spoil what it is because it's a good game, and I don't really want to spoil the story per se. That's why I'm kind of avoiding it in a lot of ways here. So yeah, if you liked this video, guys, I would certainly say subscribe, because I need to get to 1,000 subscribers now, because YouTube has decided to kick me off the partner program like the little runt I am. If this maybe, say, gets me to 60 subscribers, I would be very grateful, even just 60, because I need to take every little achievement I get, I suppose. Every 1 subscriber means a lot to me. I would certainly say I don't have much interaction on this channel, but if there is something you would like me to review this year, you know, maybe message me or leave something in the comments. I do read the comments whenever people make them. I mean, there's not many to be read, so don't worry about that. But if you do want me to maybe review something that you love, I'm certainly up to the challenge. I can't promise anything because I am a broke ass bitch, so if I have the game maybe and the stars align, I'll try to review whatever you want me to review. But in the meantime, maybe I'll make a poll on Twitter. Actually, if you want to check out my Twitter, I do keep people up to date. I've been updating it the whole time I've been away. I was, you know, just keeping it posted and updated, so if you want to know what's going on with me or if I've disappeared, you know, normally you'll find me there, so that's a good place to check on me. But I will make a poll there, although I'm sure very few people will sort of vote. I think that's everything, guys, so yeah, I guess I'm just gonna go.